But first, it's the week before Christmas. It's the time when we're all trying to put the last-minute touches on our Christmas plans and, where possible, avoid wholesale changes. Every year we play Sandringham Bingo as we try and work out who is and isn't invited to the Royal Christmas and who is and isn't going. And it's never quite as simple as it should be. And while the Sussexes are usually the biggest question mark, this year Prince Andrew has planted himself firmly in those headlines. Now, we spoke on the show last week about a report that a confidant of Prince Andrew lost an appeal against his ban from entering the UK on the basis that this particular person, known as H6, was a Chinese spy. Now, the fallout of this scandal means that Andrew is apparently no longer attending Christmas at Sandringham with the rest of the royal family. The Duchess of York, well, she has managed to engineer an adequately graceful change of plans as royal observers keenly watch on. But really, after a very challenging 2024, this was the last thing the royal family needed as the year draws to a close. Joining me now is Daily Express royal reporter Pandora Forsyth and News Corp columnist Angela Mollard. Pandora, it's probably prudent that Andrew won't join the Royal Christmas. What are you hearing on the ground from everyday Britons about this?
Yeah, I think people completely understand the King's position on this one. They've had a really difficult few years. And as you said, Caroline, this is the last thing that they needed, quite frankly, before Christmas. But it's interesting because the King is actually grateful at the moment for Fergie being around. Now, if this was 20 years ago, perhaps it would have been a different story. But the fact that Andrew is listening to Fergie on this and stepping away from the Christmas. Yesterday, we did see a Christmas lunch going on and Eugenie was there with Beatrice, but her father was nowhere to be seen. But also this Christmas, Eugenie and Beatrice are spending Christmas with their in-laws. So every which way of looking at it, there is no excuse for Andrew to turn up to Sandringham this year. But what is also interesting is, given all of the mixed press that we've had with Andrew over the past few years, which there's not enough time to talk about now, ladies, but if there was, I think the fact that this year he's not going, despite all of the previous years he's been able to go, bar the pandemic, I think says it all really about their personal relationship as well as their public one.
I think that's a very good observation. And Angela, we spoke about these particular allegations last week on the show, and I don't think they're going to disappear anytime soon. But no doubt the royal family don't want this carrying on into 2025.
No, and I think that the King needs to actually make a decision on this. He needs to basically put Andrew in his place. That means leaving him in Royal Lodge, making sure that he's got enough money, because the cost to the taxpayer of them having to investigate Andrew's relationship with this spy is far greater than the King actually paying his brother not to need to create these connections, which we know with Jeffrey Epstein and then now the spy, do no good for the country. He has poor judgment. So the best thing, as to a man who is 64, a brother, you know, he is a spare. You have to, he's in that horrible stage between being a member of the royal family who's a working member and then a non-working. If you think about it, George's siblings will not have these problems because they're likely to be non-working members of the royal family under the slimmed-down monarchy. So I think the best thing Charles can do is actually close Andrew down and keep the reputation of the monarchy intact, and that's what I'd be looking at in 2025. I'm sure they're having these discussions, how to handle the problem of Andrew.